Hola, hola, hola. So today, Friday, and we are really, I've woken Janavi out of a deep rest right now because, like the true millennial she is, like the Gen Z true millennial, I don't know where she fits in, but essentially, all of you guys have a very lovely way of sleeping and waking up. But the thing is that I've always found you extremely sharp, no matter what time I've spoken with you. So that is also something, it's a neat trick that I would love to have. But given it's Friday, I thought maybe at 1 o'clock ke baad, and especially if we are doing this one at 3:30, it's not going to fly because people will be on their way home.
Yeah.
Older people certainly who are decision makers, Janavi decision makers, will go home. So to today's topic, what I thought we'll do is we'll look at what's really bugging Apple. So Apple has kind of accepted that it's not really up to speed as far as AI is concerned. Okay, so I'm just going to read out this article that's been trending on LinkedIn, which is Apple confronts its AI shortcomings. So it's grappling with multiple roadblocks and in its AI features rollout. They were going to roll out an advanced conversational sort of update for Siri, but the software is running behind, not likely to be released in 2027. And there's something underneath that they're saying that the technology models are reaching their limits, etc. And Alexa is doing well apparently, so there is some heat, I'm sure, that is felt by Apple. So that's the setup of today's conversation, and we're trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is going on with Apple, right? Why is Apple the way it is, and what lies in store? So Janavi, over to you. I hope you're awake.
Yeah. Now I am listening to the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Okay.
one of the major problems with Apple is it has always thought of itself as a hardware company. And that is one of the
Hmm.
reasons it is very slow to pivot. Right from the time of when Steve Jobs came back, when Steve Jobs was ousted from the
Yeah.
company, there was the only say this constant denomination for all of the times that Apple has been through the different revolutionary eras has been that Apple has never manifested itself as somebody who can move fast. It has never seen itself as a company
Yeah.
who keeps up with the time. It has always been a laggard, and somewhere this kind of worked for Apple because it never had to worry about the first mover's disadvantage. But in this era, when everything is working at 10x the times, 50x the times, when you don't know what today's shift is going to cause tomorrow, right? Or where the world is going to be tomorrow, which technology we are going to be in tomorrow, then you can't really play that race where you just jump in at the last minute as the 11th hour Samaritan with one of the costliest products that you can find. It's not going to work today. So you have to keep in pace with your innovations. And if you don't have a good innovations team, please get one and get out of the mindset that that you are not a hardware company, you are a design company, right? You have always been the kind of company that comes out with the products that are easy to use by the customers, and that is your USP. That is something that Steve Jobs tried to inculcate in Apple since day one, that make products that people can use, people want to use. So come out with the same thing for your AI, the conversationalist AI. Number one. Number two, what is the requirement of a conversational AI right now? Why are you trying to improve Siri? Why are you trying to open stores in developing countries? There's absolutely no requirement of it. Tomorrow you might get sales today, but tomorrow you will be in a place where the offline sales doesn't even matter. So why are you trying to open mega stores anywhere in the world? Rather than that, loop in all of your resources and try to come up with a technology that beats Microsoft, beats Samsung, beats other of these companies that are your constant competitors.
I think, Janavi, first, before I give you my response, I wanted to know exactly, are you an Apple consumer or an
I'm an
Android
Android
user?
user.
Spoken like a true Android user. I understand completely. But I thank you for your nuanced perspective and a fairly impartial one as far as Apple is concerned. Now, I'm somebody who shifted from Android to Apple about, let's say, 10 years ago now, about 8 to 10 years ago. And because my the rest of my family was or is on Apple, so I just found it very convenient to do that, or especially FaceTime and all of that. But having said that, I think it is always better to know where we are biased before we get into any discussion like this. But coming back to Apple, here are my views. I think there's a lot of strength in your perspective, but I'll give you a different point of view. When did Apple start winning was when it realized that it was not selling airtime, but data, right? So when it started actually splitting like music to tunes, right? So instead of albums, it was selling tunes, because what it realized was it was in the business of data as well, and it was making sure that it was able to package data, and technology was mainly behind it. And of course, there was this individual called Steve Jobs, suitably supported by the great Johnny Ives and the rest of the design team, who were able to make that happen. Now, the thing that I wanted to maybe point out over here is, if I look at where Apple is going wrong, is after Steve Jobs, they've just
Yeah.
frozen. So my perspective is that they're sitting on a pile of cash. Apple there ever was, and
Yeah.
what happened with Steve Jobs? He stopped, and I haven't seen a single good innovation, even if it comes later downstream, as you said correctly. Even if it comes later downstream, I haven't seen any really good ones. I mean, the Apple Watch. I'm wearing a Garmin right now, beginner Garmin, by the way, and it's I'm probably way better than any Apple Watch. And I'm looking at various Apple incremental innovation things on the iPhone. I don't see any breakthrough disruptions happening,
Yeah.
because the perspective that Jobs brought to the table was the pivot, right? So from time to data, or from hardware to UX, or from hardware to design, as you said, is something which is reflective of the leadership that's happening. So if I have to now connect it back to leadership, Tim Cook, nice person, he was a CFO, which meant that he understands cash management. So if I understand cash management, they're doing really well, right? So they're sitting on a pile of cash, and the rest of it. So the financial stuff is happening, innovation completely missing in Apple. So I don't see that as only something to do with their lack of understanding of a new technology. I think it's the lack of leadership in this case.
Yeah, and I think that ties in well with one of the talks that we had done earlier about how, because of the board of directors and everything, the
Yeah.
CXOs are under fire, and they
Yes.
are really afraid of taking risks at this
Yes.
point. I
Yes.
think it could very well be possible that as bureaucratic as Apple's management has been
Yeah.
since inception, one of these reasons that Tim Cook is so afraid of getting into this space full throttle might even be because he's under a lot of pressure from the board.
No, here's the
But
interesting thing,
yeah,
right? Sorry, I'll let you complete that. But I'm just
please.
adding to what you're saying.
Yeah,
If I look at Tim Cook, he's an employee. If I look at Steve Jobs, he's a founder.
he's a
So
founder.
that makes all the difference.
True. True.
Sorry,
It
I
is his
interrupted.
baby, and
Yeah,
that might be what gave him the passion to keep coming back even after he had been
yeah,
ousted. That's true.
yeah.
No other CXOs would have the either the passion or even the leverage to do that. To be honest.
Exactly, exactly. But what were you saying? I interrupted
But
you.
what I was saying was that even if you are really scared of any kind of change that is
Yeah.
going to happen, right? Understand that if you don't do it today, 5 years from now, you might not exist. This
Yes.
happened with all of the big companies. You can't just say that happened to the BlackBerry. You made it happen to BlackBerry.
Exactly. And why aren't you learning, right? Why are you not learning from what you have done? What is your playbook? Please, somebody else is going to do the same play with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's already a 70% dominant Android market. Why do you want to,
Ah, so
and they have.
the Android fangirl gets in the last word here, like some odd 70% thing that she's saying. But okay, we'll let her go. We are not going to argue with her on this point. I think fair though, from where you're coming from. I do hope Apple gets its act together. I do hope that they are in the business of seriously competing with innovation rather than just cash management. That's what I think should be the case. But thank
And
you so much.
hopefully they have a card they haven't shown yet. So, and as Apple always had, so fingers crossed.
I don't know. I'm not so sure anymore. I haven't seen that happen for some time. So I
Yeah.
would really be surprised. I haven't seen anything really amazing with. But thank you for your belief in Apple, even though you're, you're an Android person. And I think we should let people go because 10 minutes, it's bloody Friday. I think people should chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please
And
get a
have
life.
fun.
Listening to
Please get
LinkedIn Live
and
on
we should also, yeah, we should also get some lives ourselves, get off our Apple and Android and go and, maybe just do something else. Thank you so much and see you maybe on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay. All right.